handle tech. I can't do that many things at one time. Thanks for being here. All right. Hello, everyone. We will wait a few more minutes just before we get started. I'm seeing some people starting to pop up on the YouTube channel, and we are just about ready to go here at GLAS Education. I'm just going to remind everyone who's joining us online that all this week we put up bios of these wonderful women who are joining us here today, who have been part of Yerkes Education Outreach and GLAS Education over many years. But most of the people who you're going to be meeting tonight joined us when we began summer internship programs in 2016. And we chose just a few of the great people who've been with us over that time so that we could represent many of the other fields that are part of astronomy or astronomy adjacent fields. So one of the things we'd love for everyone to take away from the experience tonight is that learning and being involved in astronomy teaches you many different skills that you can use in different areas of your life. So, and different as you pursue your career in many different areas. So, so I would like to, you've hopefully gotten a chance to get to know them a little bit online. If not, pop over to our Facebook page and take a look. And what I'm going to do right now is I'm just going to call on each one of them and let them introduce themselves to you. And then we're going to have a great time for questions. And we do have Adam monitoring the YouTube chat box, and we'll make sure that your questions get answered at some time during our event tonight. So again, I'm Kate Meredith, and I am the President and Director of Education at GLAS and one of the founding members. I'm the former Yerkes Observatory Education Outreach person, and I've just had the honor of working with this group of people over the last few years. And I didn't let you know ahead of time, but I'm going to start with Kara because you're used to talking to a lot of people. So Kara, I'm really glad to have you here tonight.
Well, thanks
for it.
Thanks for having me here. So I'm Kara Robotham. I teach chemistry and actually chemistry, physical science at Williams Bay, right down the street from GLAS Education in Williams Bay, Wisconsin. I have been in Williams Bay since 1993, but I've been teaching since 1990, so I'm an old hat at this. Actually, my relationship with Yerkes Observatory started when I first came into Williams Bay. One of the astrophysicists was on the team of people that was interviewing me, which was a little intimidating, but he was very supportive, and as a matter of fact, he encouraged me to apply to what at the time was called the Foster program, and it was opening up a program for teachers to be able to fly on the Kuiper Airborne Observatory. So I am and will forever be one of two teachers from the state of Wisconsin who has flown on the Kuiper Airborne Observatory, and I don't expect that that's ever going to change because it's been decommissioned and replaced by Sophia. And it would be awesome to fly on Sophia, but who knows? But anyway, that's my story, and I'm continuing to teach. And right now, unfortunately, I'm on quarantine from school, so I'm looking forward to returning to work on Monday.
So Kara, can you tell us a little bit about what Kuiper and what Sophia are?
So Kuiper was a military cargo plane that was outfitted with an infrared telescope from the side, and what they would do is they would take off at dusk from Moffett Fields at Ames Research Center in California. They would take off and they would fly and observe the entire night. and then land at dawn. And I was fortunate enough to be on one of those flights and to observe the scientists taking their data and talk to them about what they were doing. I remember being very nervous about saying, asking questions. But basically, what it came down to is, "Hey, what you doing? Okay, what you doing now?" So honestly, if you can't come up with any better questions than that, asking questions is an important part of learning. So start with that. What you doing? Why are you doing that? What you doing now? But anyway, I did get a chance to meet Dr. Charles Towns, who won a Nobel Prize for inventing the laser. He was on my flight. It was a really awesome experience. And Sophia is a plane that has replaced that. So it does very much the same thing. Of course, the reason why they put this telescope on a plane, the infrared telescope, they fly in the upper stratosphere to get above most of the Earth's to get above most of the water in the Earth's atmosphere, because otherwise observing infrared from on an Earth-based telescope is a little bit like looking at the stars from the bottom of a muddy pond. So that is why they would do that.
Well, thanks, Kara. And I
Mhm.
hope that we'll hear more about the many things that you did over the years at Yerkes as we go along. And but next, I'm going to move over to Priya and have her introduce herself.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. So, I'm Priya. I graduated from the University of Chicago about 2.5 years ago now in 2019, and I majored in astrophysics. So, I was lucky enough to be part of the first intern class at Yerkes, and I was the history intern, which is so fun because I was gonna major in history at the time, like with physics, but ended up minoring in it, and it has been the biggest passion of mine. So melding like physics with history, it was like a dream. So that was a great internship experience to start off like my time at U Chicago. And right now, after I graduated, I started as a data scientist. So right now I work as a data scientist for a tech startup under Uber. So I get like the big tech experience, but also like it's a startup. So I get to work with like such great people. And my manager is actually a physics PhD. So we have a lot of physics people like on my team, actually. Like a lot of people from physics end up in data science because everything I learned for data science, I really learned in my physics classes. So super cool stuff.
And Priya has a video blog that she does and is really, really cool. So maybe you could plug that at any time, Priya, because I love watching it. All right. So next we're going to go over to Becca, and Becca was with at Yerkes when I think she was just a youngster. So we look. So here it is, Becca.
Hi, Kate. Thanks for having me. Yes, I started at Yerkes in 2007, actually. Went to a Yays summer camp they had, Yerkes Astrophysics Academy for Young Scientists. I think that might not be around anymore, but first got to know Yerkes there. And ever since I started joining other programs at Yerkes and really got to know the staff there, and that's really how I got my first interest in STEM. From there, I went to Purdue University, where I studied aeronautical engineering and got a degree there. And eventually that got me to where I am now. I live down in Fort Worth, Texas, and I support the F-35 Lightning II program for a major defense contractor. And if you're not familiar with the F-35, it's the world's most advanced fighter aircraft, serving nations all around the world. I think we have 14 nations now, 760 aircraft out and about around the world, protecting all sorts of us from adversaries that you don't even know. So I work on the F-35 program. I have had the opportunity to go to Japan and Italy, where we build F-35s there as well. Work with our international countries on their specific engineering needs, and it's been a blast.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much. And I really appreciate you being here. Yeah, watching your career grow has been really exciting. And the Yays camps were actually came out of a grant, and we had camps for many years at Yerkes, and that was part of what made uh, our 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 the things that we do more effective. So we started with students when they were very young and they had a place to be at Yerkes, and now GLAS Education for years. And now that we're away from Yerkes, we're just getting to the point now where we are ready to restart that. And we're looking forward to supporting the next generation of elementary school students, boys and girls, who are interested in STEM. But today we're about celebrating the advances of women. And Tia Burts is going to talk to us next about her very interesting journey in STEM. So Tia, take it away.
Yeah, I'm Tia Burts, and I've been with Yerkes since 2014. It all started at a summer camp at the Wisconsin School for the Blind and Visually Impaired. And throughout my high school years, I made visits back to Yerkes. And then I interned with them in 2017 with their iData project. And originally I was to be an undergraduate mentor, but then my role got switched to 3D printing after Kate saw me speed model a telescope she's been needing for like a couple years.
Yeah, that was a really interesting summer, and we have been working for many years with try and make STEM accessible to blind, visually impaired, and deaf and hard of hearing students. And in fact, make STEM and astronomy accessible to as many people as possible. But Tia is an example of the talents that exist in people of all walks of life, and we're so fortunate to have her, because that story about the modeling the 24-inch telescope is one that I tell frequently. Is like, I had wanted a student to model this and create a 3D model, because it's not something that you can explain to somebody who doesn't have vision unless you can put a model in their hand, because it's kind of dangerous to crawl to the top of that thing. And it was Tia who just said, oh yeah, I can do that, and went up, and we did that. And then we worked on the refractor, the great refractor, and Tia was the first person to make me walk that spiral staircase up the mount so that she could get the measurements she needed to create a model of the refractor as well. So Tia, where do you work? Your career has gone to working in industry to now working at a private organization, I believe. Can you tell us just a little bit about that?
So yeah, I initially worked at Starter Industries after getting my degree in CAD and mechanical design, and I eventually had to quit because of an allergy to coolant, but that placed me at an education outreach center. So now I serve as their technology instructor. So I teach everything from 3D printing to aerospace design to futuristic technology.
That's great. And so your career can keep taking twists and turns. And right now, Tia is also working with GLAS to work on making instructions for a 3D printer accessible for someone with blindness or low vision. And we are going to work to distribute those 3D printers. And that is made possible through a foundation grant through the Angel Family Foundation. And last but definitely not least, Amanda, tell us about your journey with GLAS and Yerkes, because it's a long one as well.
Yeah, it's a long one. Thanks for having me here, Kate, and hopefully I won't ramble on too much. But I finished college at the University of Chicago, and when I started college, I was actually totally not interested in astronomy. I was pre-med. It's kind of what my parents wanted me to do. And I'm originally from New York City, so my favorite joke is that the closest thing I've ever seen to a star is a helicopter. So totally, like, astronomy was nowhere on my radar. But my first year of college, somebody organized in my house a house trip to Yerkes Observatory. And we went and we stayed there for a night, I think, and we looked through the Great Refractor, and it totally, like, changed my, like, that was the moment that, you know how sometimes life has like very critical choices, you have like a fork in the road, and I feel like that was one of those moments. So I decided to pursue astronomy along, well, physics at the time, because there was no astronomy major, physics and chemistry, and then I just dropped chemistry because I was like, whatever, like I want to do physics. And so not a lot of students were coming up to Yerkes Observatory at the time, at least from the University of Chicago. And so I aimed to change that, and developed, with the help of some professors, helped develop like quarterly workshops at Yerkes Observatory for undergraduates. And we got funding for it. And then, and it was great. It was happening once a quarter. That's actually where I met Priya too. I remember meeting you. And so that continued for a while. I graduated in 2015 and started grad school at UC Riverside. So I'm currently working on understanding massive galaxy clusters, and sort of characterizing the galaxies that exist within those clusters and around them, and how gravitational lensing plays a role in magnifying the light from the galaxies behind this massive galaxy cluster. So that's what my thesis is on. But throughout my whole graduate career, I've stayed very active within Yerkes Education. That's how I met Kate. And then when she founded GLAS, I continued being very active in GLAS, and we do a lot of really interesting stuff with GLAS. I'm very grateful that I'm part of this team, because it really sort of helps give a more like human facet. I love astronomy, but it gives a more like human perspective to the work that I do and how we can share it and communicate it with the world and with like aspiring scientists. So we currently work with GLAS with, I work on a small telescope or 0.5 meter telescope in Sonoma, California called the Stone Age Observatory. And we're currently doing a lot of projects with students at the University of Nigeria, the West African Road Office, which is the regional office of astronomy for development. I have to like always say that in my head. And it's been like a really fulfilling experience. And I'm going to graduate, hopefully. I'm going to defend my thesis this summer, and I just accepted a postdoctoral fellowship position at the Space Telescope Science Institute, where I will continue working on the Hubble Space Telescope. And they just launched James Webb, if you haven't heard about it yet. So I will be working on that too. That's me.
That's really exciting. Amanda, could I just have you, for people who might not know, could you kind of explain the possible, the sequence of degrees that you get to? Because I'm not sure everyone knows, defending a thesis or dissertation and all those words. Could you just run through that for us?
Yeah, sorry about that. So
okay.
I graduated with a Bachelor of Arts, actually, in physics at UChicago. At Riverside, we took some classes and we had to do an exam. Different universities will do it differently, but that gave me a master's. And now I'm doing research on these massive galaxy clusters, which sort of help push the technical limits of Hubble, or they actually go beyond the technical limits of Hubble. So we're getting some of the faintest, most extreme galaxies kind of known to man right now. And so getting a PhD, so you defend your thesis, which just means you give a presentation that's usually an hour long, the culmination of all your blood, sweat, and tears of grad school, 6 years of grad school. And a committee decides if you're worthy of a PhD. Usually they won't let you defend if they don't think you're worthy in the first place. So you usually end up with a PhD when you get to that point. And then finally you look for postdoctoral positions, and you do that for like 3 to 6 years, sometimes a little more. And then you can find a permanent position, hopefully, and become faculty or research staff at either a national lab or a university. That's the academic path or academia path.
So thanks, Amanda. And actually this is a very important question, because the career paths can take lots of different directions. So I started off with an education degree, and I was going to be strictly a biology teacher. I did not fall in love with astronomy until much later in my career. And my master's degree, when I went back to school, I wanted to leave teaching. I thought I was going to go into natural resource management. And once I was away from the classroom for a while, I really wanted to go back, and went back and became an environmental science and earth science teacher, and got the chance to run an observatory, and I had to learn everything I needed to know, and I ended up at Yerkes to do that. So my formal education stops at the master's degree level, but there's other pathways that you can take, and I've had gaps in between. I've stopped and I've started again. I've paused. I've had career time and then gone back to school. I've taken many classes. So I'm wondering if, Tia, can you share with us what was your educational pathway to what you know now in your career?
So it kind of started when I homeschooled. I did a lot of independent study for 4 years, from 4th grade to 8th grade. And ever since I was a really young kid, I've always been into science for some reason. And then in high school, that's when I got introduced to 3D printing, and I was just all over it. Like, I thought it was the coolest thing ever. And I also got into manned space flight and space exploration thanks to a trip to space camp. And then after I finished high school, I did a 2-year degree at North Central Technical College in mechanical design and computer-aided design to work in the field of manufacturing.
Okay, this is awesome. So we've got people on who've had a lot of different paths in their career, and I've heard a couple of aha moments, that fork in the road that Amanda was telling us about. I'm wondering if any of you, any of the other panelists could share a story either about their career path, or its windings and twists, or what were your aha moments where you thought, yes, this is where I need to go next?
Hey, Kate, I'll share. So in the midst of being at Purdue University, when I first went there, I joined the School of Engineering. So at Purdue, you do a year of general engineering before you decide exactly what engineering field you want to go into. So I kind of got a little taste of every single discipline of engineering, and I decided to go into the aeronautics and astronautics school. And about a semester in, I decided it really wasn't for me. The math, some of the courses I was taking were very challenging in a way that wasn't growing me in the way I kind of wanted to. So I had a lot of mentorship, and I looked at the field of STEM in general because I knew I was interested in STEM, but maybe this wasn't the path in STEM for me. And I changed to the School of Technology. And it's very different focus. I got to do a lot more hands-on work and learned more specifics about aviation and the business side. And so that's another piece to this, is once you start down a path in STEM and it's not what's for you, it doesn't mean that there's something else out there in STEM that would be for you. And I'm so glad I made that choice and didn't just completely leave STEM and drop out to something different, because aviation is my passion now, and I love it. And I got a master's degree after that. A lot of companies now, they will pay for your postgraduate studies. So my company fortunately paid for my master's degree. I got that in aeronautics, and it's been great. I don't know if I have a PhD in me like the others, but we'll see. So I thought I would share that. Just because you decide down one path doesn't mean there's something else in STEM that you might change your mind and find is more for you.
Would anyone else like to share a story or an aha moment?
So my aha moment, it happened in school. I was originally going to school for mechanical engineering, so 2 years at the local university here in Marshfield, and then 3 years over in Stout or Platteville. So I finish up my first semester and I'm sitting with a friend on New Year's Eve and we're talking about mechanical engineering programs, and he shows me what classes are required, and he's rattling off a list of classes, and in my brain I was going, nope, 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 absolutely not, ick, heck no. I was like, I can't do this. Where's all the fun CAD classes? So the next week, I hop onto North Central Tech's website and look through their programs, and then I see mechanical computer-aided design, and I was like, yes, that's the program.
That's excellent. So I'm hearing a couple people really enjoyed the hands-on part, that they needed to find that element that really called to them. And, you know, I've watched Kara, as she's been at, when she worked with the summer camps, really provide those for students. I'm wondering, Kara, if you've got any aha moments or stories from Yerke's summer camp days that that reflects some of what these other people are saying.
I don't know that I'd necessarily say an aha moment from the camps. A couple of things that I noticed in my experience going through in my training as an undergraduate is there's definitely, some people might steer away from STEM fields with this thought in mind that there is that there's a loss of like a creative aspect to it, thinking that I'm a creative person, this isn't my thing, you know, I want to go into a field that is going to foster this creativity. And I want to dispel that myth right now. STEM fields are incredibly creative. There are so many opportunities to have that artistic and hands-on and creative aspect in so many ways, not just in how you go about uh, learning about something, but in how you solve problems, in how you share it with other people. And I think that was one of the things that I noticed more and more with the summer camps, is finding really creative ways to engage the students in the activities of the camp was really exciting. That was fun.
Well, thanks. Thanks. Okay. I'll just pause for a second in case there's anybody else that wants to chime in with another comment, and then we'll just kind of move on. All right. Well, that kind of what Kara was saying about finding the creative piece of it, that kind of leads into my next piece of the discussion, is that one of the things that we pay attention to as educators at GLAS is providing a broad number of experiences, and that when we're trying to attract non-traditional people are underrepresented in the sciences, we try and look at what really makes a group in general tick, or how can we provide a variety of things and in an environment that is supportive. And that so when we have our summer intern programs, or when we have camp, everybody is involved in making those experiences happen. So in the summers here, we work we'll have anywhere from 6 to 15 interns on site at a time, and to accommodate it, everyone lives together, and we have campers, and we have our intern staff, and we have mentors, you know, people like Kara or Mark Bertu, or you know, Amanda, you're now in the mentor category, here to be role models. But that's a big part of what we do, is make sure that people have access to different ways of doing things, and also, you know, a really supportive community. And what I'd like to hear from each one of you is something because this is really important. This is core to our mission. And what role or something about being part of Yerke's education outreach or GLAS education has mattered or made a difference to you in your career and or your life? Yeah, I'm going big here. I'm going for the whole life. So you can either just tell me when you're ready to go in the chat box. I don't want to put you too much on the spot, but I'm going to pause here and or just wave your hand and I'll call on you. Okay, Carrie, you're up.
Well, speaking past the creative aspect, just fostering some of the relationships, getting to know the people that I worked with at Yerke's, and really feeling that everyone had a role in working to this common goal together of sharing STEM with new and up and coming people. That's always an exciting part of it. I would say that was one of the biggest things for me, is feeling like there was a place for me. I had a role, I had something that I could do, that I could contribute, that was valuable, and getting to know the people that I worked with and appreciating and valuing what they did as well. That was definitely life-changing for me.
Thank you. And Priya, you're next.
Yeah, just echoing off of what Kara said about feeling like there was a place. I really feel like that was my first experience where I really realized that I didn't have to do just physics, like academia. Like growing up, I always thought I would. Like in high school, I would tell people in 8th grade, I like posted on my friend's Facebook wall. I was like, I'm gonna get a physics PhD. And once I got to the University of Chicago and started realizing, like, hey, maybe I love physics, but maybe I'm better at other things. Or maybe there's a place for me in STEM that isn't just physics. I feel like Yerke's really taught me that that's okay, because I got to like learn about everything I love in physics, but also like mix that with history, because I love writing and I love storytelling. So I think it was really the first time in my life where I realized like I didn't have to go down a set path. And then after that, that's exactly what happened. Like now I'm in tech, but I have a YouTube channel and I do get to tell my story. So it's just like you're not really like a one-dimensional person. And when you're so young, you don't realize that. But when I went to Yerke's, I was like, wow, like there's so much I can do and I'm not stuck on a specific path. So it was definitely pivotal in undergraduate years.
Oh, that just warms my heart. Becca, you're up.
Yeah, definitely off of both the last two, the support system, having people with the same culture, the same goals that you have, and those cheerleaders who will push you beyond your limits to help you reach your goals is really important. At Yerke's, I had so many supportive staff members when the building was still open, you know, running around and always taking the time to help you work through things. I remember a week before I went to college, I was so nervous. I didn't know if I was doing the right thing. And I was just second guessing it, you know, going so far away from home. And Dr. Ken Gardner, if you remember him, Kate, he stopped me in the hallway. He knew how nervous I was, and he took me out to lunch and just, you know, helped me understand imposter syndrome, what that was. And, you know, you're going to be a minority in some of the classes you're in the field you're going into, but don't let that get you down, and go forward. And that just meant so much to me. And several other folks, you, Kate, included, and Kara, just always having people supporting you, but also making sure you find those mentors that push you to make you stretch, go into stretch assignments, and go beyond what you're think you're even capable of doing. And that's what Yerke's really provided, and all those mentors that I had.
Thanks for mentioning, big part of Yerke's for a long time. And Becca, can you explain for everyone who might not know what imposter syndrome is?
Yeah, imposter syndrome, and Kate, maybe you can explain it better. But
I could add.
It's really just not believing you're capable of something you truly are capable of doing, believing you don't have the qualifications, or believing that for various reasons, other peers that have the same level of experience and knowledge as you for some reason have one up on you, and you kind of it kind of is in the back of your mind all the time. One example is every week I have to attend a meeting with hundreds of military personnel, and I am the only female in the room, and imposter syndrome sort of sits in. It's like, oh my gosh, am I qualified to be here, or am I and not only that, I'm also the youngest person, so do I really have the experience to allow me to be here? And so knowing what imposter syndrome is, and knowing that it impacts most of us is good, because you realize it's there, and you realize you really are capable, and you do have a seat at the table.
And it can impact everybody, but women tend to fall prey a little easier than men do. Women have a tendency to underestimate their abilities in scientific studies of qualifications, or this has actually been studied, and women will have a tendency to underestimate their abilities relative to men. Men will take more risks, and then there is the discrimination of women. When you're underrepresented in a field, when any group of people is underrepresented, you don't see your face in the room, it's insecurity provoking, and it can manifest as imposter syndrome. And I would love to I'd love to talk a lot more about that with people who are a little more qualified than I am to speak about it, but Amanda's got a story for us, so I'm going to go off to Amanda.
Oh, sure. Thanks, Kate. So, I mean, if it wasn't clear from my introduction that Yerkes has like massively impacted my life, then like, I feel like I've covered that part already, because it is like probably 70% of the reason that I'm doing physics right now. But kind of maybe more specifically, or maybe adding on to that is, and also kind of tagging off of what Becca was saying, that Yerkes is sort of, so in like college, you have a set path that you have to follow, right? And you have to like do well in your classes, and like there's no room for making mistakes, I feel. And I feel like Yerkes provided a place where you were able to make mistakes and you weren't afraid to do it. So you were able to like tinker around with like the Fab Lab at Yerkes, and you can 3D print something like really terrible, and it was okay, maybe not to you, but whatever. And so it was just a place where I felt like I could explore, like we were given the freedom to explore our passions and the things that we found innately interesting, right? Without worrying that there was going to be some test or expectation behind it other than just exploring and discovering. And I think that really helped sort of secure my passion for astronomy, because that's sort of how I've been trying to, that's the mindset I've been trying to apply in grad school as well. But yeah, mentoring others has been immensely fulfilling. Just being able to collaborate with others and mentor students who might not have all the resources, or just are, like asking for help, and you're able to help them. It just feels immensely fulfilling. And like doing GLAS meetings is like one of the most fulfilling parts of my days. So yeah, and of course, as everyone said, mentorship. The professors that I still keep in touch with from college are the ones that I have interacted with the most at Yerkes. And so just kind of having that stacked mentorship relationship with the professors, and then like for the people that you mentor, it's just been like a really, I've said fulfilling a lot, but it's been a very fulfilling part of the process.
And it's super fulfilling we keep coming back to these amazing creative people and tapping them on the shoulder for events like this, or for helping us design or build something so that we can build the next generation of projects here. That is baked into how we structure particularly internships for high school students and for college students, is that this is what you signed on for, but you're welcome to have side projects. And if you need to shift what you're doing, what we teach you to do is put a bow on what you did to document and back up what you've done, and leave it enough space for the next person to pick it up. But you can make mistakes, you can reroute, and we teach you how to do that. And learning how to persevere in science is one of those things. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute, but Kara's got one more thing to share here.
Well, when Amanda was talking about how fulfilling it was in terms of mentoring and how important I think we all recognize that it is as women in STEM fields to encourage the next generation of women to go into the field, I think it's really important to point out that I was not just encouraged by the female mentors in my life. I was very much encouraged by the male mentors in my life. A number of people, my older brother, um, some of the people that I've worked with in my profession, professors, but there are several men also in my life that served as mentors and that encouraged me in continuing in the field. And I don't think we want to ignore that's an important part.
I agree, and I think that that is one thing that we do have to keep in mind, is that the good mentorship comes from many different people and many different generations, and that nested or stacked mentorship. Yeah, we have a lot of great people working with us, and that is part of it. So and that goes into mentorship, and persistence in the field all go together. So it's when you have that conversation in the hall, but with someone who takes time to care, and that there are certain characteristics in cultures in a school or in a new working environment that can be supportive or prohibitive to women persisting in STEM. So we know that women and girls show equal interest in STEM fields. And we know also from our work that students show equal interest in STEM fields as sighted students, but it drops off quickly without opportunity and mentorship. And that once you hit college, that women drop out of STEM fields at far greater rates than men, and that with the exception of some fields like biomedical engineering and astronomy, our numbers have not shifted a lot over the last 3 decades, that women are still vastly the minority in leadership in some of the STEM fields. And there's many reasons for this. Women tend to still hold more of the responsibility for family than men do, and that working environments that allow for that are not always available. And so what I'm interested in knowing from this group is, as you're in your career or growing your own careers, what are you for, or what has been supportive for you in being your whole person? All of your Priya's really touched beautifully on how her interests have been part of her job, but I would like to know from more stories about what, as a woman in the field, how do you incorporate your life, and how do you feel supported, and what seems to hold you back sometimes? You got to jump in, or I'm going to keep talking. Oh, Tia, go ahead.
So for me, what supports me in my career? Well, my boss right now, she has a degree in oceanography, and she's into stuff like astronomy. So she's kind of into the STEM fields like I am, and she's very supportive of me. And my family's also been very supportive. Like, they tell me that you're not limited by your vision impairment.
That's excellent. Tia, how did you manage with your vision impairment? Because I know at one point you like made the papers with some of the things that you and your company were doing with helping to make it possible for you to do your job well.
So it's kind of a combination of like persistence, wit, and technology.
Tell me more about that.
So, for example, I have a virtual reality headset that allows me to see things at a closer distance. I used that when I was at Hostriders. And when I'm in the kitchen, I'll use my phone for magnification. And I'll just come up with different solutions on how to get things done.
Excellent. Yeah, I see a few people nodding here. Does anyone else have anything else to add in those areas? Okay, well, I'm going to start heading. Feel free to jump in if you
Okay,
want.
I'll jump in.
Oh, go ahead.
So on the piece you're talking about on feeling supported, obviously women have more downtime when they, start to decide to have families, and in some cases on how you decide to have a family. And thought I would touch on that because I think a lot of companies are doing a lot better on offering a maternity leave, but also paternal leave, and supporting our fathers and having that time off, but not ever feeling like it's a burden. I've never been in a situation or never seen a situation where, at least in my company, someone doesn't get a job opportunity or anything like that based on having to take maternity leave. But certainly you hear those stories, and it's important to recognize those things and find the companies and the places that support you. So I know my company will support me when I decide to make those decisions, and also flexibility in work schedules. We work 4 days a week. We work 4 10-hour weeks, so we get every Friday off. So kind of the tools that help you outside of your job to be healthy and successful in your personal life is just as important as you're in some of these very demanding STEM fields.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So Amanda, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I'm going to. In the field, and your husband is also in the research astronomy field. There is a pressure to do research, publishable research. How do you feel that manifests? Do you feel the pressure is the same for men and women? And how do you think you cope with that?
Yeah, I think in general, so not specifically related to like women in the field, but like in general as a minority in the field, academia has a lot of its issues, and I think that a lot of people are trying to change that now, so it's encouraging to see. But there have been studies in the past where like people would submit, it was for a study, so they would submit the same paper anonymous, one with a woman's name and one with a men's name, and the one with the men's name would get accepted faster and more often than the one with the woman's name. And then they've done a study where if it's totally blind, so like if you anonymize the authorship, the women publish at the same success rate as men do. So there's definitely some of these internalized biases in academia that I think reassuringly people are trying to change, but I don't think it's gone yet, unfortunately. So yes, there's a pressure to publish. Yes, there are internalized biases, but also, yes, there are people who are working to make academia a better place. That answers the
Good.
publishing question. Yeah.
Yeah, it does. And I think that, what Becca was saying too, is that I think the change and allowing, when we make the rules that are supportive of women, prioritizing family values or other areas of their life that they want to pursue, and when it's done for both men and women, it demonstrates that we value men as parents, or we value men as people who are going out and doing education and public outreach with their jobs. Because right now it's far, we in the science fields, most of the education and public outreach is still done by women, even in the fields where women are the minority in that field. And so when organizations value the education and public outreach components of their job and give standing to that and acknowledge that in terms of seniority and pay and recognition, that if we do that for men and women, we raise that up, then we get better results in terms of people being available to mentor and people being out there in the education fields. So Kara has something to add.
So kind of spinning off of that idea a little bit, the global pandemic has also played a role, brought something to bear a lot more quickly, I think, than we were really ready to approach this. This was coming on the horizon regardless, but working remotely, using technology, not having to be in that workplace or around people, that's in these coming years going to be making a significant difference in what the workplace is going to look like, what it's going to look like for people balancing raising their children and working remotely, all of those things. We're still ironing, I think, a lot of that out. Like I said, a lot of this was looming on the horizon, but now it's out of necessity. It's smacked us in the face, and I think that is going to completely transform the workplace, what life is like, what the work-life balance is, all of those things in these coming years.
Okay, mentors, we're coming up on our last couple minutes, and I would like just to open up the floor. What would you like to say to girls or women who are looking at career changes or considering STEM fields? You've already given a lot of great stories, but do you have any advice or any stories of perseverance that you want to share with our listening audience? Amanda, did you want to go?
Yeah, I was actually going to tack on to Kara's point.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
But I can yeah.
Again, keeping you.
Yeah, so just really quickly. So I definitely agree with kind of what Kara was saying, how the workplace is totally going to change. And I think it seems like companies are offering more flexibility to their employees. I do want to make sure that people are aware of the fact that as the pandemic is coming, maybe not to an end, but is sort of ramping down slowly but surely, that men have actually recouped their pandemic related job losses, but women, and especially women of color, are lagging behind. And so this is something that people are going to have to keep front of mind as we move into this sort of post-pandemic world of flexibility, but making sure that everybody has a seat at the table, right? So that was just to tack on the point to Kara's thing. And to answer your word of advice, I think it's really important to surround yourself with a community of people that support you, to have to pick mentors who you can trust, and maybe even be vulnerable with whenever you have trouble with something that you can come to them for advice and ask how to proceed. When I was debating on this job offer, I spoke to Kate about it because she's one of my mentors and I really appreciate her. And I've spoken to, some of my other mentors and kind of pick their brains on what I should do. So having someone who's like in your corner, I think is really valuable as you're navigating whatever career path you're trying to navigate, whether that's in academia or in tech or in the military or whatever you're doing. So that's my piece.
Excellent, excellent. Priya.
Yeah, I completely echo the point Amanda just said about surrounding yourself with like very supportive people. I think cultivating like a very diverse group of friends, colleagues, that's so important because I feel like, at least for me, I feel like I'm like an accumulation of everyone I've met. Like I try to take as much as I can from the other people that I meet. And in the same vein, you want to have a supportive group of people around you, but you need to also learn how to support yourself sometimes because especially like as a woman or someone who is a potential like minority, you might be the only voice like in the situation that you're in, and you have to know when you have to fight for yourself, like especially like I'd say in tech, like when it comes to salary especially, like for the same role men just get paid more than women, and I've seen that myself, and I just like spoke out. And I think when you do that, and or when you switch companies, which is what I did, like you just find that people change. Like you can really fight for what you want and it exists out there. Like my current company, they're so good about diversity and inclusion. It's like one of their pillars. We have like a diversity panel and we have like promotion panels to ensure that it's very equitable. And you don't see that everywhere. So like you have to fight for that. And you should never think that you're worth less than somebody else just because you're a minority, because things like, things like pay, being happy at your 9 to 5, like that's going to affect your quality of life. So yeah.
Those are excellent points. Kara.
And to just kind of move away from what, or going along with what Priya was saying, it sounds to me like there is a certain amount of bravery and fierceness that I think is important to find within yourself. Don't be afraid to try it. Don't be afraid to find your place. Don't be afraid to fail, because let's face it, folks, it's going to happen at some point or another in your life. There's going to be something that you're not going to do very well. Don't be afraid to fail at it, and don't be afraid to try again. It's grit. So I think that that's an important thing in fighting for yourself, in finding your place in a STEM field.
I really appreciate the points that are coming up, because I think that sometimes we can feel disempowered by a situation and not take responsibility for how we are perceiving things, and then stepping forward and speaking up for ourselves. So it kind of takes a piece of that imposter syndrome, or being a minority, or not feeling like you have a voice, but you also have a deep responsibility to yourself to advocate for yourself. And in terms of, I'm just going to put a plug out for the American Association of University Women. They have the best salary negotiation class online that I have ever seen. And I strongly recommend that every woman take a look at that. I myself didn't think, I'm heading, a nonprofit. I don't need to, but I don't need to look at that. But I looked at it because I wanted to be able to recommend it to other people. And what I found out in there is that I was not standing up for myself when I'm working in a collaboration in terms of my what my worth was as an educational organization, what portion of the grant proposal money should be coming. I always was the first one to make cuts. I was always the first one to diminish my contribution over the computer programmers or the, the researchers, and that taught me to really look at what your value is and advocate for that value, and not always be the first one to compromise. Pause. A collaborative environment does not mean that you always have to be giving up something that's important to you. So taking responsibility for educating yourself and becoming a stronger person is also part of the formula. So Tia.
So my piece of advice is don't be afraid to take risks and do something different. And I kind of have a funny story to illustrate that. The other month I was making soup, and it was one of those pull top cans. And somehow I pulled the little top off of it, and it was stuck. And I was like, okay, I don't have a can opener. So I had to get creative. And I was like, I'm going to run upstairs and grab my needle nose pliers. And it worked. And I know that's just a funny way of saying if you run into problems, don't be afraid to think outside the box and try something new.
Or grab tools outside of the kitchen. So thank you, Tia. Kara, did you have something else?
Nope.
Nope.
There's nothing that can't be fixed with some needle nose pliers, is what I always say.
Super glue and duct tape and WD-40, right?
That's right.
And I, as a, I've been leading GLAS Education for the last 3.5 years, and I rely on my community of people as well. And that trust is super important. And just this last weekend, I was sitting down with Amanda and Javi, and I put myself out there about, here is a presentation I'm not confident about. Here's what I've got. And that environment says somebody can tell you, make it possible for people to tell you that, no, that's not clear, or no, I think you should try this again, or this is completely confusing. To have a community of people around you that can tell you the truth, and or tell you what they're perceiving, and be able to regroup and try again. And when you've got that, you've got everything. So I have loved pretty much every moment that I've worked with interns and students here at GLAS Education and at Yerkes Observatory. So those are my closing words. And if anyone else has anything else to add, we'll be wrapping it up. But I'm so grateful for you all being here. All right, everyone.
Thanks for having me, Kate.
Oh, I'm really glad you were all here. And so for everyone else who's online, thank you for being here. This will be a recording and available. And if you want to learn more about GLAS Education, check out our website. And by all means, if you want to donate to these programs, we do not bring in any outside funding for supporting interns during the summer. So we're always looking for donations. We always have money to pay interns, but the staff time and the mentor time all comes from our own blood, sweat, and tears here at GLAS, and it takes a team, and we have a really great one here. And many of the people on this line are part of that. So thanks everyone for coming.
Thanks, Kate.